was born on June 13, 1940 in Fall River, Massachusetts. His mom passed away at childbirth and he was raised by his loving father. He recalled growing up that he always felt anxious and this inhibited him from being able to have friends. When he was 20, he tried out business school for about a year and didn't take to it. He talked a lot about wanting to have a purpose in his life. So at age 21, he entered the military Army Reserves in Fort Dix, Massachusetts. He was sent with his platoon to Germany and then New York, where his base was stationed. He served a total of 3 years during the Cuban Missile Crisis and was discharged honorably from the Army in 1964 due to being diagnosed with an anxiety disorder. At age 24, Fred worked in retail and enjoyed working with people. He lived with his dad and took care of him after having a stroke. You could tell he was proud of this honor, and he should have been. He was a very good son and he loved his father very much. His dad passed away in 1993, and that's when his anxiety and depression took a turn for the worse. He decided he needed a change and moved to Oregon at the age of 53 to start anew. The move wasn't enough. He was on the subway in Portland and he had a severe panic attack. He knew that something was wrong and he needed to make a change. Fred admitted himself to the VA in Oregon in 1996, and in that moment his life changed. He was finally prescribed medication. For the first time, he was able to reframe events in his life that caused him to struggle. He finally began to enjoy life without fear. And his life did change. He met a woman, fell in love, and was married for 3 years. Fred worked at JCPenney's in Portland, Oregon, and talked about loving it there because of all the nature that surrounded him. He retired early at 65, and after his divorce, met a lively woman who loved to travel. In 2010, they traveled all over the world and had many adventures. They finally settled in San Miguel de Allende, Mexico. They eventually separated and he started online dating. He loved the spark of it. He looked young for his age, so he would fib on the dating site and say he was 10 years younger than he was. And in some ways he was. He had a great personality, a wonderful sense of humor, and he was handsome for his age. He met a woman online, and he confessed she was the best person he had ever met. He described her having long silver hair, a beautiful smile, kind eyes, and someone who helped other people make a difference in the world. But then it happened again. The medication stopped working. Fred came into my life when he was 74. It was so hard for him that he couldn't leave his house except to walk his dog. I'm grateful for his dog, who at that time was his only companion. We struggled to find the right medication when talk therapy wasn't enough. His panic attacks were so severe he became suicidal. Some weeks I would visit him 2 and 3 times to make sure he got his shopping done and encourage him to find some meaning in his life. He had an amazing neighbor who became his only friend. He would help him with odds and ends, and being a native speaker to Mexico, he helped navigate living in a foreign country. As time passed, Fred and I noticed that he was getting a tumor on his neck, so I encouraged him to go to the VA in San Diego, where he could get free medical care. It took a lot of courage for a man with severe anxiety to leave the country and fly all by himself, but he mustered up the courage. Returning to San Miguel, we waited for the biopsy results, and they came back inconclusive. Fred felt let down, and as though he wanted to give up. In some ways, he did. He refused any kind of cancer treatment and said he just wanted to leave peacefully. And as his therapist, I honored his wishes. As the cancer progressed, we prepared his ashes. He asked me to take his ashes to Oregon and the trees, where he remembered being happy. As he became more ill, the idea of his legacy was important to him. We spent many hours discussing this legacy and what had brought meaning to his life. The cancer spread quickly throughout his body. His neighbor, the young man, became in some ways like a long-lost son to Fred. He helped to organize 24-hour in-home care so that Fred could be as comfortable as possible. In years past, Fred often talked about a woman across the street he wanted to befriend, but didn't think he was capable of. He wanted to have friends so badly for so long. When he was bedridden, she checked on him daily, and for the first time in many years, Fred had true friends. The day before he passed away, I read him his life story one last time. He asked me to paint him. He said he wanted his story to live on when he was gone. He also asked to say goodbye to his lost love, and so I scheduled a phone call for them to say goodbye. He asked me to fix his hair and made a joke as he usually did to lighten the mood. I held the phone while they talked, and she confided that she had always loved him. I held back the tears while they cried together, and for the first time I saw him be truly happy. As they hung up the phone, I pulled out the paper where we had written his life story. We added a few lines together and I read them back to him. Fred White died in his home knowing true love, with his friends and his dog by his side. He told me to write down one last sentence to his story. So I did. He looked at me and said, "Seize life, never take it for granted, laugh when you can, and try to enjoy the little moments because it all goes by so fast."
Waiting for the wind to pick me up and take me over to the places my heart is meant to know. Oh, I'm waiting for the wind because it's always on my shoulders, and when it comes, I know it's time to go. It's time to go. To the places my heart is meant to know.